Here is a closer look at the District 16 congressional race. A recent poll sponsored by San Jose Spotlight found that former San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo leads with 16% of likely voters. Santa Clara County Supervisor Joe Simitian, who we're going to hear from after the break, has 13%. And former Saratoga Councilmember Rishi Kumar and Assemblymember Evan Lowe are tied for third with 7% each. And still ahead, we sit down one-on-one with Supervisor Simitian. We'll ask him about his priorities in the race and how he believes his experience is a benefit.
This is Picks Plus. More of what you want, more often. More local news in the morning and the primetime edition. The only 8 and 9 p.m. news. With Devin Fehely, Elizabeth Cook, Juliette Goodrich, and Sarah Donchie. Groundbreaking original storytelling from the KPIX newsroom. Plus Bear Politics, Project Earth, and weather like you've never seen. The primetime edition, tonight on the new Picks Plus. 44 Cable 12.
Joining me now is congressional candidate for District 16 in the South Bay, Joe Simitian, who is endorsed by outgoing Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who is retiring. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to start briefly with that, right? It's not the power of incumbency, but the endorsement of the outgoing Congresswoman has to mean a lot.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, but I think it means a lot in this case because Congresswoman Eshoo knows me, knows my work. She knows the community, she knows the district very well after representing folks for 30 years, and she certainly knows what it takes to be effective in Congress. So you put all that together, and I think people think, yeah, this is a significant statement of support, and I certainly appreciate it.
Now, we talked about how this is really sort of a generational opportunity. She was swept into office in the Year of the Woman in 1992 and has held this seat for 32 years before deciding that she had, well earned a retirement and some time off. So it's the first time that the seat has really been open in decades. How do you distinguish yourself amongst the very crowded field of candidates that are vying for the seat now?
Well, you're right. There are 11 of us. And, people say, all right, Supervisor Joe Simitian, what makes you different? What sets you apart? And what I say to them is only one of the candidates, that would be me, has represented 14 of the 15 cities in this district. You say South Bay, but it really stretches from northern San Mateo County all the way down to San Jose. So we're talking about places like Half Moon Bay, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Los Gatos. 14 of these 15, those are all places I've represented. I know the people, they know me, I know their needs, their wants, their wishes. I think that sets me apart. But more than that, Devin, I think people are looking for somebody who's ready on day one. These are fraught times, these are daunting times. And so someone who's been a state senator, who's actually delivered meaningful legislation, that hands-free cell phone bill, I wrote that. Renewable energy requirements, I wrote that law. Transitional kindergarten, some of your viewers have kids in that program, I wrote that law. First new grade level in California in more than 100 years. So if you know the people, they know you, and you've got a record of legislative accomplishment, I think that sets you apart.
Dovetailing off what you said about readiness on day one, there are some very consequential issues that this Congress is going to deal with. And most of the time it's local issues, but now it's an international issue. There is a war that has been deeply polarizing between Israel and Hamas. And I know that there's been a lot of activism in the streets and people feel very strongly about that. I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of lay out your position there.
Well, these are not new issues or concerns to me. I have traveled to Israel, but also to the wider Middle East. So I've been to Lebanon, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Egypt, I've been to the West Bank. I have been right cheek by jowl with Gaza. So I know the territory. I have some real understanding of these issues. I think we can all agree what happened on October the 7th was a terrorist act by a terrorist organization. Israel had every right and indeed necessity to respond and protect itself. The hope and expectation is that that will happen while they make great efforts to minimize civilian casualties. That's tough when Hamas embeds itself in the civilian infrastructure, uses folks as human shields. Ultimately, we're going to need to see hostages returned. We're going to need to see Hamas gone from Gaza, and then a lasting and sustainable peace with some new governance in place.
Just one quick follow-up on that topic. There have been a number of civilians, women and children, that have been killed, right? Do you think that Israel is doing enough or as much as they could to minimize those types of casualties?
Let me answer it this way. I think the Biden administration is right to keep pressing for greater and greater efforts, not only to minimize casualties, but to provide, I'll call it humanitarian aid. We've got 2 million people who are in a world of hurt. But I also think we got to look long term. You know, a short-term pause and then right back to the violence doesn't serve anyone well, doesn't serve the Israeli community well, and certainly doesn't serve the Palestinian people well. So we've got to be thinking bigger picture, longer term, got to minimize civilian casualties while making sure there is a lasting and sustainable peace. That will require the return of the hostages, and it will require Hamas to vacate Gaza.
You know, to serve this district well, you don't have the luxury of a singular focus on a singular issue. Yeah. But you did tell me before we began that one of the issues that you would like to focus on is reproductive rights. Talk to me about that.
Well, it's front and center because the United States Supreme Court has tossed aside, you know, a 50-year-old precedent. I mean, we thought we could rely on a woman's right to choose. We thought we could ensure that there was reproductive freedom. With this Supreme Court, it's rather obvious that we can't, and we're not going to be able to rely on them for a very long time, given the makeup of the court today. That means that Congress has to step up, has to step in, find a solution, pass the law at a national level that protects the rights of women and families throughout the entire country. Because we may feel a little bit comfortable here in California, but there are impacts felt across the nation, and that's going to require a legislative solution given the court.
Given the fact that that is such a polarizing and politicized issue, you think there's any appetite for a national solution in Congress in Washington?
Well, I think the American public is not that polarized around this set of issues. I think
D.C. is.
Well, D.C. is, and the makeup of the Congress is. And look, I'm not naive. I have worked in partisan environments before in the state Senate. When I passed the legislation I talked to you about, I had to work across party lines. I had to find common ground. I had to get Republican votes. So, you know, yes, the polarization is real, but on this issue around the nation, I believe that most folks in the United States are where my district is and where I am, which is they support a woman's right to choose, and they want to make sure that abortion is legal and available.
We probably have about 15 or 20 seconds. Your final pitch, or what are you going to be doing in these final days of this campaign as we head to the primary?
I'm going to make sure that people in my district, the district I aspire to represent, know there is somebody who is ready on day one. There's a reason why more than 200 locally elected officials, groups like the Sierra Club, the California Teachers Association, have endorsed my candidacy. They've looked at 11 of us, Congresswoman Eshoo, you mentioned, Congresswoman Jackie Spear, all supporting my candidacy because they know me, they know my work, and they know I can deliver in this current environment for this particular district, the place I live and love.
All right, thank you so much. I thank you for the clarification that it is the South Bay and it's also the peninsula. I'm a San Jose guy, as you might know, so I often have a San Jose-centric point of view, so I appreciate the correction.
Let's just call it a clarification.
Clarification.
Right?
Thank you, Joe Simitian. All right, we have been speaking with more candidates in the District 16 race this week. We'll hear from them right after the break.